What's up, folks? D-Pad here from the Bluescreen Bronies, and I am here with the team from Roleplaying is Magic. So how y'all doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Hi, guys.
Things going pretty well. You?
So, this is your Season 2 book that came out a while back, and you're now working on your Season 3 edition of Roleplaying is Magic, and, what initially founded this idea for you guys to get together and make something like this?
Me and my roommate at the time, who's Know-It-All, my design partner on the game, we got into ponies about episode 6, roughly, of season 1, and toward the end of that season, we almost simultaneously had the idea of there should be a role-playing game for this. So I was pretty certain someone else had probably already had the idea, and sure enough, I mean we're certainly not the first one, but there were some ones out there that had some neat ideas, but there were a lot of games were based on current systems, like the Savage Worlds My Little Pony. That's a classic one, but it's and I mean I love it, but it's based on Savage Worlds, and you need to know Savage Worlds to play it, and so it sort of has that side to it. And of course, there's any number of D&D pony mods and stats and stuff for. So we just had the thought of let's make a new system, a new game for Bronies by Bronies, and it's just evolved from there.
Now I was reading through Season 1 and Season 2, and I was going through, and I thought it was really interesting how you have the whole dynamic where you're based on storytelling.
Yes, that's something that we've tried to focus on from the beginning. We figured a lot of role-playing games are based on combat or tactical type stuff. A friend of mine, famously in our group of friends, made the point of D&D isn't necessarily a role-playing game. It's sort of a tactical combat game that you can adventure with. And so it's sort of our joke around the friends. But so we wanted to take it in a different direction, and so we've got some very very set design decisions, like story trumps mechanics and numbers. And if something works for the story and doesn't work for mechanics, then the mechanics need to change. And there's any number of other things that go into it. Like we didn't want to have grids required. We didn't want to have sort of the peripherals that most games need, because we figure a lot of Bronies are going to play this over Skype. A lot of people would play it over, at a convention where maybe you're just sort of sitting around somewhere and you don't have the setup for it. So it's all based on sort of a theater of the mind type thing. You imagine things, and it's all very storytelling and collaborative storytelling based. So that's sort of where it lives. That's its home in terms of design.
How'd you kind of figure out where the stats all came with the whole dice mechanics and the change from, what was it? You run on D6s instead of, what was the last one?
We did D20s. It was a D20 system because we figured it would be a neat sort of nod to, of course, D&D is sort of the progenitor of most people's love of role-playing games. And then we actually we made a call for feedback because we've been sort of building our community slowly. Got a nice little tight-knit little community, and we put out a call for any and all feedback. Even if you just want to tell us that the game sucks after Season 2 edition, that's fine, because you still cared enough to write in. You know what I mean? Just tell us why it sucks. And so there is one group that made a really good point, and they've since become one of our playtest groups. They made a really good point of not everyone has D20s, but most people have some sort of board game or could easily get D6s, whereas they may not get D20s. Like you can always go buy dice from, say, Walmart, but if you don't know where your local game shop is, you may not be able to get D20s without ordering them online.
Right, and every game of Monopoly has at least one D6.
Exactly. You can always steal them from somewhere. And so we figured we'd switch it over to D6s, and now the Season 3 edition is entirely D6 based. It's the only dice you need to play the game. You can play it with one. It's probably better if you have at least two, because each checks are 2d6 rolls. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it makes more sense. It makes it more open, and it makes it inclusive, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's an important thing for us. We want anybody to be able to pick up the book. If you've never role played before, you should be able to learn it and play it, with things you could find around the house.
And also, I was looking into it in the whole cinematic versus narrative phases. So, how did that idea come about? Because that's really neat.
That's just something that that Know-It-All and I just came up with. I tell my friends and say this a lot, that this is sort of what we do all day, is just think about design and game and that sort of stuff. It's really not hyperbole. This is what we do all day. When we hang out with friends, we're talking about, let's build games, and how could you do a Wild West RPG? How could you do sci-fi? And just what mechanics are good and what should be. And so we do a lot of classification. A lot of things like what is damage? What does it represent? How do you classify different types of damage? Which is where the several types of damage thing that we do comes from. But for narrative and cinematic mode, that's just, we tried to classify what everybody does when playing most games. There's the let's go into town and ask questions phase, and the we're in combat phase, and there's just timing is not necessarily important, and cinematic is, and it's just a way of making that very general and easy to understand, and putting it in sort of the cinematic type, or not cinematic, but like the visual medium, because if we can refer things sort of to the show, everybody knows the show, and like most people have played a game where it's gone into a cutscene or a cinematic, and so it's very intense, and yeah, so we try to do a lot of classification like that, and making them general and easy to understand, and then run everything off of that sort of loosely defined storytelling, again, type thing.
Then as far as character creation goes down, now I know that there were dragons in season 2. Like, how many races can we look forward to in the new edition?
I'm actually glad you brought that up. When we were doing our pre-interview meeting, we were talking about what we can confirm and not. And we can go ahead and confirm the races that are going to be in the Season 3 edition. There will be 6 races. You've got Earth Ponies, Pegasi, and Unicorns, of course, because those are the standards. And then we're going to have Griffins, Zebras, and Crystal Ponies. So those are the ones you can look forward to. And then not to confirm anything, but we're talking about expanding that afterwards.
So what are the benefits that the new races have that weren't in the last games?
It comes down to how they work differently. One of the things that we've tried to think about in terms of Season 3 versus Season 2 edition. Season 2 edition, it's literally the first book I've ever written, and it's been talked about how it kind of meanders a bit and it's a little hard to follow, and that's absolutely true. And so we tried to tighten down a lot and streamline things and really redesign kind of from the ground up and what Season 3 would be and how it would play, and kind of go back to square one. So what I try to tell people is, if you've played the Season 2 edition or the Season 2 edition, don't look at Season 3 edition as a direct sort of mechanical progression. Think of it like a spiritual successor, because it's changed and it's different, and we do things like the special abilities of races are now kind of like talent trees, and you're getting points and you put them into a few different abilities and you can scale them upward until they change. And so there's different things like, for example, unicorns obviously have spell casting. That's one of their things, and so they can level up the aspects that they can create spells with, and that sort of thing. Zebras, on the other hand, have alchemy, and it lets them create things that duplicate spell effects. But where unicorns have to kind of pay for their spells with their will and their energy, zebras get a certain number of these alchemical things they can use for free. So they can't match the power of a unicorn, but they've got sort of more versatility in a way. And yeah, actually, Viral makes a good point in the chat there. Wizard versus sorcerer. That's definitely one of the things we've compared them to. They both do magic, but in different ways and a different basis and slightly different systems. But their basis is the same. They have a special ability. They put points into it. It's what unlocks the ability. So yeah, so a lot of the races do things in different ways, but they've all sort of got their unique little twist. Playing a Griffin isn't the same as playing a Pegasus.
Are you treating combat any different in the new one, or are you kind of just avoiding that issue and focusing more on a narrative with problem solving as opposed to conflict?
Yeah, that's That's a fair way of phrasing it. We try to stick with combat as a puzzle. Sort of our way of doing it. Like it's not you have to decrease the number of hit points before the enemy is defeated. It's things like if the dragon, if it's what's a good example from the show, for example, Spike turns into a huge dragon, really nobody can fight him straight on. It removes that as even an option, so you have to find another way of getting through to him, and so it takes it out of the realm of the tactical and the strategic and find the most numerically effective way, and puts it back into the storytelling and the narrative, and how do we get through to this character, how do we solve this puzzle, is sort of how it works. Although and that's actually a good point, because I can toss it over to Casey here a little bit with something they've been working on. Do you want to talk about the Bestiary and Rogues Gallery?
Sure. We've been working on getting a Bestiary and Rogues Gallery, because I believe that was one of the things that was asked for a lot coming in from Season 2.
Oh, yes.
So we pretty much have set it up for all the different villains and monsters there have been, what they can do, tips on how you'd go about fighting them. We don't really have anything in the way of hard mechanics to sort of go with, continuing with the theme of more narrative rather than tactical, but pretty much a general gist of roughly how strong something is, what it looks like, all basic stuff, as well as for the villains, a more thorough one, like what their goals are, like what they're planning to do in a more large-scale thing. One of the more interesting things that we've been trying to put together.
Yeah, it's part of the content creation. It's what Casey's our lead content creator for season 3. We brought him on board because one of the biggest things that we've been asked about is for things like the Bestiary and a Rogues Gallery for sort of more direct personified adversaries like Discord and Nightmare Moon and that sort of thing. And it's a lot of work to come up with that, and they've really done a lot of work over the last several months. And it's just something, we brought people on board, and I don't know if I've said this to you, but you guys knocked it out. So well done.
Well, it seems like be a little easier for newer players if they actually don't have to build their own stats for enemies, if they have some kind of guide as to what the base stats for enemies should be, and they're not just kind of flying blind.
Yeah, well, and the stats is a good point, because Casey, like Casey was saying, there's not necessarily a whole lot of hard stats but there are tactics. There's parts of the puzzle.
Also, we have the pre-made adventures that we're working on that sort of give a rough estimate on where numbers would be. Like, if you want a sort of guide of what's appropriate, that we have sort of that set up in the various we have 3 different levels of modules coming out for the core book.
So as far as villains, we're just going to see the generic cast from seasons 1 through 3, or do you have a couple of custom ones that you've engineered?
A little of A, a little of B. We've got a few custom villains worked out. We have mostly the ones from the show. We have pretty much all the ones from the show, as well as a few that have been added for the various modules.
Yeah, Roleplaying is Magic. We have a focus on again, I have a lot of phrases and mottos and that sort of thing. I'm that kind of guy, I guess. But sort of watch phrase that we tend to use is canon focused, but fanon friendly. So we don't make a lot of assumptions necessarily. We've actually, it's not, I wouldn't say restricted us in certain ways, but it's kind of, restricted us in certain ways. We try to stick as close to the show as possible, so that if you want to play the show, that's what the game's designed for. It's designed to recreate that experience as much as possible, because that's the original idea, was during our ponyless summer, that we all sort of have to endure before the next season. We want to have something, generate your own content if you're not a fan fiction writer or an artist, that sort of thing. If you're a gamer, and you want to play with your friends, here's something that's, it's sort of like the pony experience. It's with you guys and your friends. And so a lot of the stuff that we do, we try to keep it as focused as possible on the show, while not being restrictive. So if you want to say griffins are a certain way in your version of the world that you're playing, there's not a lot that would necessarily contradict you. So you can adapt things. It's very house rules friendly. in that way. And it comes a lot from not having a lot of hard stats. And, so for our modules, we've got a few things like that as sort of examples of how you can do it yourself. And it still works with everything and is fine. But as far as like the bestiary and the rogues gallery, the actual things we've pulled from the show, those are the things we pulled from the show. So those are going to be familiar, and you'll know those things.
So what is exactly this Cutie Cameo contest you were talking about?
Okay, so basically, I'm a friend of Tails, and he brought me on to help with the team, and I did an event, I want to say around December, where we ran a contest where people could submit their OCs, and we selected 3 winners out of the OCs, just based on, what would fit well in the general pony concept, keeping true to the show and everything. And so we had 3 winners, which were Barnstormer, Walnut Maple, or Maple Walnut, I'm sorry, and Rookwood. I've been staring at their names so long. And so, we had those as the winners, and so they're going to have their OCs basically featured as art in the book, little cameo appearances. Just as a fun way to kind of include the community in the season 3 release, kind of give them that opportunity. And also in regards to season 3, I know a lot of people were requesting an index. We will be doing that. Yes, we will be doing that going forward for season 3, so that will be available.
So when you say book, do you mean this is going to print, or are you just going to be releasing this as a PDF?
It's going to be an ebook like the last copy, I think.
Yeah, it'll be an ebook. We're looking at ways to, and I'm going to try to get a link or find a company for people who do want to print it out to do it relatively cheaply. For example, I'm getting a hard copy version, but
oh, cool.
Of course I like this,
Yeah, get it leather bound, get some nice engraving, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, right, stone tablets.
Maybe I'll help with that, because I'm looking at the Past Sins printing project, so...
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, any information? We've had a couple of people who have printed out the season 2 edition, and God bless you for doing that, because that was a huge long book to have printed out, and it's super flattering.
It looks beautiful though.
Yeah, there was, man. I love my team. You guys do so good. Seriously, it blows me away that these people want to work on this stuff. You people are crazy and you're wizards, and I love you. So we're trying to work on getting season 3 so it's a little bit more print friendly. We don't have as much heavy graphics on each page. It's more it's a cleaner look. It's a cleaner design and streamlined, that sort of stuff. And there's been a lot of work that's gone into the layout for that, so it won't hopefully break your bank if you want to print it out. But like the season 2 edition, we're planning it'll be a PDF ebook you can get. Of course, it's free. It'll always be free. Because we can't charge, but also we're working on an I think it's a .epub is the mobile book format. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at for that. That'll have hopefully. As long as we can get the technical stuff worked out, it'll be less graphics, so you don't have to worry about space and your mobile device crashing, that sort of thing. We'll end up having a web version as well, like season 2 did. We try to get it out as much as possible for as many different formats and that sort of thing as possible. So, but yeah.
So speaking of community, have you ever thought about undertaking a little more into the fanon side of things, like ever trying to make a conversion for Fallout Equestria?
Oh goodness. One of my fondest dreams is that someone will do that. Is that someone will take some of the absolutely fantastic fan fiction stuff that we've got, like Fallout Equestria, or like, oh goodness, I don't know, one of my personal favorites, Antipodes. I really like that, but there's just several of them. There's Conversion Bureau. There's just a ton of them, and there's some great universes that have been created, and there are things that I've seen that people want to write a story in or want to be a part of, and this might be a way to do it. We're just we have kind of limited manpower, and our focus is we try to focus on the canon side of it, but leave it open.
Right.
So if people want to create settings for it, absolutely, and I reach out to us if we can help you out or whatever we can do. Like, that'd be great. We just have to be careful. Yeah. We just have to be careful, of what actually gets attached officially to us. And it just goes back to our focus, the canon focus. And it's nothing against any of the suggestions we've gotten. We've gotten some very smart suggestions on how to do a formal combat system, and how to do all sorts of things from equipment tables to damage,
inventory slots.
Yeah, inventory slots, that sort of thing. Classes, and that's something we should sort of stay away from. Like, races are classes, sort of, but they're not actually classes. And we've gotten a lot of really smart things like that, but there's just an element of you can't take it too far in one direction or the other, or it loses sort of what it is.
What is this SRD that was mentioned?
Okay, so one of the things that we've had for Season 3 that we didn't have for the Season 2 edition is a fairly large base of playtesters. I say fairly large because there were a lot of people that wanted to playtest that it just didn't work out quite right. Like, they didn't have a group, or they couldn't meet regularly, or that sort of thing. So we brought it down to 3 main groups to cover as many bases as we could. It's a group that has mostly, well, not mostly, but they have younger players, which is one thing that we want to kind of look at, especially for Brony parents who want to teach their kids. But the playtest groups to run playtesting, and I had to learn a lot of how to run playtesting. And again, it was still very informal and loose, but you have to have some sort of central base, and here are the rules to use, and things need to get updated and sort of hot fixed as revisions come in and change and go. And originally we were using Google Docs, and it just wasn't cutting it. We'd have to reiterate the whole thing for the next playtest, and we did several playtests. So we ended up just opening a Google site that we have sort of hidden for now, and we're going to try to open it once it's cleaned up and ready for public consumption, I guess. But it's our SRD, or system resource document. It's like how D&D and D20 has like their free version, the SRD. Of course, our whole thing is free version, but it's a way for you to play if you just want very, very much the rules and the mechanics, and want to maybe not have as much fluff and and art and that sort of stuff. If you're just focused on, you just want a game, you can use this.
Quick reference.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was originally our playtesting site for our playtesters to use, and had a whole change log of everything and itemized. It was very set up for that, so we're going to try to convert it over and make it open as the Season 3 edition SRD. Hopefully it'll be ready about the same time the book is, but we'll see.
So we've talked a lot about, the upcoming release, but haven't really talked much about the team. So where did you guys all fall in with this whole crazy pony obsession?
You guys want to start on that since you're here?
Sure.
Go ahead, Casey.
All right. About 2 years back, I was living with my best friend. We would work together, and she's been a fan of the show since the 80s. And so Film comes out, and her friend gets her back into it, and she proceeds to constantly pester my roommate. And I'm like, hey, you guys, we need to watch this sometime. So finally we go, okay, fine. We all sit down, and I think by the end of the month I had already gotten caught up on Season 1. And I ended up outpacing her at one point. And so it's like, okay, yeah, it sort of became our after work thing of, hey, let's head home, let's do something non-stressful. And so that's kind of how we got into it.
Well, I kind of already went over how I came into it. Like I was a fan of it in the 80s, not super fangirly about it or whatever, but, I liked it. And then I came, Jamie mentioned that he needed help for the managing the community as far as, the forums, getting the accounts activated, things like that. So I said I was more than willing to help out with that, of course. And so that's how I ended up becoming the community manager. I wasn't, like I said, I didn't come from like the pony perspective. I kind of came from more like an administrative or secretarial type.
Yeah, I was drowning in work and needed.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like his little right-hand pony, and I run around doing all the things that he needs me to do.
All right.
Yeah, never had a personal assistant before. Gotta say, I'm like,
Cohorts are awesome.
yeah. For me, getting into the community, it's a sort of a little special journey for me, but it's not an uncommon thing among Bronies. I used to frequent 4chan very regularly, and just happened to start seeing the pony reaction faces that you'd see, and of course the infamous mods are asleep post ponies image. And I don't know. I thought it was funny. I wouldn't necessarily say, I'm a huge fan of animation. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like animation, but it's not like a primary focus. And for me, it was I watched again sort of the infamous the 4-episode hook. If you watch 4 episodes, you kind of know if you're going to like it or not. And I ended up watching 4 episodes, and I found for me it's about the message, and I think this kind of goes to, I guess, sort of a larger point, but I think probably for most Bronies, it's the message, and it's that it's a positive influence without being lame. You know what I mean? It's got fun and positive things without it being obvious and hit you over the head with it more than it needs to be.
Right, without sounding tropic or mundane.
Yeah. And it happened to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's not very like overly sappy or just mindlessly syrupy either.
Yeah, it's just enough sugar, but it happened to coincide with a time where I was starting to focus on identifying personal strength and being a good person, and kind of turning myself around as a person and trying to become a better one. And I know it struck a chord, and I've been hooked on it ever since. And then, of course, we kind of went over how the project got started earlier, and it's just gone from there. Really, it amazes me every day that we're as far as we are with these things, and again that there are people that want to work on this stuff, and that the Brony. General blanket statement. I'm in awe of Bronies. I love us. Yeah, it's a mind-blowing thing. It's a very important, I think, an important community and social influence that we're having, and I'm fascinated by those things, and so it's got me from multiple angles.
So does your that what you were saying about how much you like the positive message and kind of the storytelling, does that really lay into that part where at the end you have to write a letter in your
Yes. Absolutely it does. Okay, so for anybody listening who doesn't necessarily know, the way you get experience in Role-Playing is Magic is you write at the end of an episode, you write your group's letter to the princess. And it's all about what are the lessons that the group learned, and what are the areas of character growth, and that sort of thing. And for each lesson that you've learned, you get experience for it. And so there's solving problems isn't necessarily even how you get experience, and we very much diverge from other role-playing games in that way. It's not just solving problems, it's what you learned from solving problems, and it's how you've grown as an individual, and that sort of thing. And that's actually seemed to get a pretty neat resonance with especially with our playtest groups, but with all the feedback that we've gotten.
Yeah, it's been pretty popular.
It's a neat idea. And we've taken it a step further with the season 3 edition. Yeah. that's still in there. That's the primary way of getting, well, it's the only way of getting experience is the lessons that you learn. But there's two things that have changed. The scope of the game has expanded in that you're not, as I put it, you're not just sort of playing around Ponyville, and you're not just sort of those characters around town. The game is opened and expanded in scope, so you can have the more epic adventures and the let's save Equestria type things, and the adventure in the big city and that sort of stuff. So you can be sort of higher power characters. The other way is that we have a main resource in the Season 3 edition called Virtue. If anybody's familiar with the old Marvel Superheroes RPG, we got the idea from sort of their karma system, where being heroic gets you karma, and then it's sort of its own reward, and you can spend it for things. In a nutshell, that's what Virtue is, but it's for less well defined. It's not heroic things and here are the rules for being a hero. It's more what your group sort of agrees is good and what's the best thing in this situation, and how trying to be a good person, trying to make the best decisions earns you virtue, and you spend virtue for things like healing and very important vital functions. So the game is very much focused on you're the good guys. You're trying to be good people, good ponies. But you sort of virtue is its own reward. When you do stuff and you get virtue, you can spend it for things to help you later. It's a tangible reward on being good. And you're absolutely right. That goes back to that positive message of things. I think one of the most powerful things about Friendship is Magic is that it's able to be positive and moral without being one specific type of moral set. It's just a general try to be good. And I like that. And so we tried to design for that experience. One of the things about an episode, writing an episode, creating an episode for Roleplaying is Magic is there sort of is that aspect of it, but it's kind of more because it's a storytelling experience. You're kind of identifying what your message of the story is. And then leaving it open, and if the players get a different, or if the characters and the players get a different message, that's okay. They can draw their own things. I mean, how many times in the show have we thought something was going to go one way and it went another way and it ended up being way better?
I just want to say, I really want to thank you for stopping by. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. So, can we see you guys potentially at any conventions or any little gatherings coming up to talk about what you're doing, or are you kind of keeping to yourselves as you wind down towards the release of your Season 3 book?
For myself, I don't know if I'm going to end up with anybody else there, but I'm currently saving up, trying to go to Everfree Northwest. Yeah, I don't know, some podcast people invited me to be on a panel or something. I don't know how that works. No, it's hoping to be on you guys panel there. Barring a catastrophe, should be able to make it. But I don't know. Are you guys planning to do, Casey and Kendall?
I haven't got any planned. Besides, I did tell you that I was going to consider Everfree Northwest with you.
That's right.
I've never been that far northwest, being a Florida girl myself, but I will definitely try to make it out there. Seems like a fun thing to do. But other than the Everfree Northwest, I haven't planned any. I'm not sure if there are any nearby me. I haven't checked.
Yeah, as for me, it's not Pony, but I'll be going to Otakon down in Baltimore this August, and also I'm considering going to Canterlot Gardens with a few of my friends. We went last year and it was a great time, so might go again if we have the time.
Well, Tail, Kendall, Casey, we just want to thank you very much for popping by and spending some time talking with us. It's been a lot of fun, been very enlightening, and I'm really excited to see what's in store for your Season 3 book.